Hey people, it's Wednesday and this is the Zero Save and technically why so scary? And I'm here with my first on Creepypasta. Yes, I'm sorry if I'm sick and this might get in the way of the story, but just try to ignore it. Now this Creepypasta is called 12 Minutes. It's really good, I like it. So I don't think, stop the bullshit and let's start reading. Okay. In the fall of 1987, the local news channel WSB-TV2 of Atlanta, Georgia, was attempting to fill a scheduling gap on their Sunday morning lineup. After a few solicitations by local business owners, they decided to allow the young verse Merrily Satch to take a available hour block to do a religiously themed show. It operated October 18th with little promotion. The show was standard religious fare and consisted of the Revered sitting in a simple chair, reading passages from the Bible to the camera and discussing their interpretation and significance to our modern day-to-day life. The show received a reasonable number of viewers and continued to be shown into early December. It was then that the studio began to receive extremely strange complaints from viewers of Word of Light with Rev. Marley Satch. The calls were from women, and women only, who vaguely referred to uncomfortable feelings that they had of very specific internals in the programs. They described feelings of nausea, back pain, dizziness, and blurred vision. The callers, for no discernible reason, were convinced that it was the viewing of this program that caused these symptoms. It was later determined that 3 weeks of complaints that these feelings were happening at roughly 12-minute intervals during the course of the programs. The small studio staff checked all recording equipment, both audio and video, and found nothing faulty. The, the, rev, the Reverend was made aware of these incidents. He merely shrugged and stated cryptically that some can handle the voice of God. The head of the studio, at loss to explain the cause of these complaints, decided to continue running the program. By February, viewership has dropped sharply, and it was decided to pull the plug on the show. The studio had figured out it would be more prudent to spend as much time as possible on the news story that had the other two local news networks abuzz. The miscarriage epidemic, starting sometime in November. The number of healthy pregnant women miscarrying in the Atlanta metropolitan area had reached over 300. The CDC could find no discernible cause for the terrifying occurrence. The Reverend took the show's cancellation with what could only be described as abject indifference. When informed, he made no protest, merely nodded almost knowingly. He left the studio after the last episodes were filmed without so much as a word and dropped off the face of the earth. No one ever heard from him again, not his former congregation or any members of the church. The studio moved on, filling the slot with infomercials and continued to concentrate in the miscarriage story. A year and a half later, an intern at the WSB studios discovered the tapes of the Words of Light and began going through them in an attempt to find stock footage for an upcoming piece of studio doing about the impact of religion on the city. The Atlanta incident, known as the miscarriage epidemic, became known in medical journals, petered out 3 months after the studio canceled. Reverend Satch's show and had already begun to fed from the public's consciousness. As the intern went through the tapes, he accidentally made a disturbing discovery about the footage. While attempting one recording at 10 minutes 45 seconds, he mistakenly jammed the fast forward button. While the footage switched by, an attempt to pry open the button with the screwdriver. As he succeeded, the tape stopped 32 minutes 1 second. The intern actually fell out of his chair when he looked up at what was frozen on the screen. The image of a badly decomposed severed head filled up the entire frame. After he collects himself, he moves the film back a couple frames, then forwards, and realizes his mind is now playing tricks on him. He begins going through the rest of the recording and soon discovered that exactly 12-minute intervals, the image would appear one at a time. Thinking it was some practical joke being played on the new guy, he presents it to one of the film technicians ready to be mocked. The technician was just as puzzled as him. No one had touched the footage since the cancellation of the show. After the studio had closed for the night, the intern convinced the tech to help him out with all the tapes of the Words of Light. They discovered that every single episode had the same horrifying anatomy. They, they also realized that the show progressed the image that had become more disgusting, as maggots began to eat away at the loose flesh and pieces of hair and skin seemed to have fallen off exponentially. The tech made clear that the intern that we're gonna see was technically impossible since the film itself showed absolutely no signs of splicing, as he himself was in every filming of the show and knew of no time when this image could have been inserted into frame. All of this was presented to the studio head, who, fearing some kind of backlash over allowing this to get on air, ordered all the tape destroyed. He told the intern and tech he had no interest in knowing who did this at this point, that only covering their collective asses is all that was important now. He demanded they mention this to no one. The tech easily moved on, remembering this accident as a dark, funny, personal anecdote, but the intern wouldn't let it go. He made copies of as many tapes as he could before they were wiped, and took them to see if he could find anything else in them. They might to point who did this or why they would. A week later, he attempted to rope the tech into helping him again, saying that he believed he had discovered something even more disgusting in these images themselves. When the single frames were edited together in chronological order, the head's mouth appeared to be moving as if trying to form words. The tech, fearing his job, told him to get rid of the copies and not to talk about it again. A week later, a police responded to a 911 call made by an elderly woman in one of the Atlanta suburbs at dusk. She had heard horrible noises coming from her next door neighbor's house where a young couple lived. She told the emergency responder that the wife was pregnant and that she was terrified that something had happened. When the officers arrived at the scene 20 minutes later, they found no lights on the windows and the front door ajar. They moved in slowly and made their way into the living room. Inside, they found a young woman dead, with her abdomen slashed open. The wound was jagged, and a trail of blood led to the body to the couch on the far end of the room. There sat her husband, the studio intern, naked, the corpse of the unborn baby at his feet, dying. In his hand, he held a rusty piece of metal, sid- sidling he had used to gut his pregnant wife. The television was on and playing an 18-second loop of silent footage of the decomposing head mouthing some unintelligible words. The story of the police person on that day goes that the intern kept saying under his breath over and over again as he led them away, "The light of God calls." Now that was 12 minutes. It's a nice creepypasta. I really like this one. I'm sorry if I stopped because I can't read perfectly, but I tried. So I hope you guys enjoyed this creepypasta. I really liked it myself. I'm sick and I'm sorry if you heard sniffles and all this shit, but nonetheless, hope you guys enjoy your stay. Please like and subscribe. That'd be cool. And I'll see you guys Friday, and salute, peoples.